This is the Russell's Reserve 10-year bourbon, a bottle that I have reviewed several times. And while it's been a great value, it's never really been my favorite from Wild Turkey, given it's only 90 proof, and it usually, for me, sips a little bit too thin. So why am I talking about this bottle again? Well, historically, Wild Turkey, every now and again, does some different things to their on-the-shelf batch products, and it looks like we have another one right here. So let's talk about Russell's Reserve 10 and what makes this batch so special. Stay tuned. It's the Mash and Drum. What's up, folks? I'm Jason C. from the Mash and Drum, and welcome back to the show. Like, subscribe, and help me keep climbing to 100,000 subscribers here in 2024 and beyond. Appreciate the support, everybody. So before we dive into this Russell's 10, we need to talk about a very important part of being a fan of Wild Turkey bourbons and whiskeys. And while as much as I love to roll my eyes about this fact, it's laser codes. As I mentioned, historically, Wild Turkey has surprised their fans with certain iterations of their batch products being a bit different than the standard offering we usually get on the shelf. Now, this goes all the way back to April of 2018 when Bruce Russell mentioned on Reddit that 2018's Wild Turkey 101 contained more 10-year bourbon over the typical 8-year bourbon thanks to the popularity of Long Branch. Now, for me, this was also the first time I heard about hunting specific laser codes from Wild Turkey. It was something that was kind of well known, specific batches that come out every so-and-so years and are more special than others, and we'll get to deciphering those in a bit. But at the time, the laser code on the bottle to look for was LL/GH, GI, or GJ, or at least that's how I think I remember it. Now, there were also rumors that there was a random batch of Wild Turkey Rare Breed back in March of 2018 that contained 15-year whiskey. Now, while that ended up not being true, Wild Turkey laser code hunters started scouring the shelves looking for these batches. I also think that was the year where Fred Minnick tasted a Wild Turkey Rare Breed and he put it on top of George T. Stagg. I'm not really sure exactly what happened, how I remember it, but it just kind of set the bourbon world on fire and everybody was searching for these bottles of Wild Turkey Rare Breed. Now that brings us to this bottle of Russell's Reserve 10-year here in 2024. So long story short, a few months ago, there was a rumor that a batch of Russell's Reserve 10 that was bottled in May of 2024, or if you're looking at the laser code, LL/ME, was a huge improvement than other recent batches of Russell's Reserve 10-year. Now, the rumor started because the bottling date followed the release of the Russell's Reserve 15 release that was widely popular amongst reviewers, bourbon aficionados, and just bourbon hunters in general. So the prevailing theory is that the 15-plus-year-old barrels that didn't make it into Russell's 15 were used in the batch to create this particular Russell's 10-year. Now, why would they do this? Maybe the barrels weren't good enough to be used as single barrels for the standard Russell's Reserve program, but really what put the rumor over the top for me was David Jennings of Rarebird 101 saying, buy Russell's Reserve 10-year LL/ME, that is all. All right, so I'm gonna get this poured and then we'll dive into how to read a Wild Turkey laser code. So Wild Turkey uses a laser code format that gives you the date and time that the bottle is filled. Now the code can look pretty long, but all you need to know are the first two letters that follow the LL/. So the first letter is the year and the second letter gives you the month. Here are some examples so you know exactly what to look for, and what's nice is that recently Wild Turkey added the bottling date underneath the laser code so you don't need a decoder ring to figure out the actual date and bottling time. But what we're looking at here is when you're searching for this bottle, all you need to look for is LL/ME. So for this Russell's Reserve 10-year, it's a May of 2024 bottling. It's bottled at 90 proof with a retail price these days of about 40 bucks. All right, so let's dive into this one. The one thing that stands out to me, especially on the nose of this particular batch of Russell's 10-year, is that medicinal cherry, almost kind of cough syrupy, cherry Jolly Rancher type of note. that I really do get in a lot of the ultra age Russell. I mean, I get it a lot in Russell's 13. Russell's 15, you get that note a little bit too, but I think there's just a little bit more going on in Russell's 15. But for Russell's 13, that medicinal cherry note is something that really comes to the forefront, and I'm getting it in here, so maybe that's an indication. Again, this rumor that the 15 plus year whiskey is in this batch it's unsubstantiated. We don't know if it's exactly true, but that's what we're here to find out. A much more darker profile here on this Russell's as well. There's really, really rich brown sugars, kind of borderline molasses happening here. That like citrus orange note I normally get in Russell's 10, it almost feels like it's charred, like you took a flame to an orange peel. It's a little bit cooked, it's a little bit caramelized, and I feel like that's what's in here as well. And I don't know if it makes sense, but there feels like there's like an aged cream soda vanilla thing happening. Like if you barrel aged cream soda, it would kind of taste like this. I also think there's a nice mix of those leather sweet tobacco notes that you normally get in aged whiskeys. It's a really stark difference than what I remember Russell's 10 being. We will do a quick comparison soon, so let's dive in. Cheers. To me, I think the oak profile is what stands out. It does feel like an older whiskey, which makes me think that, yeah, this rumor could be true. That medicinal cherry note that I was getting on the nose is a little bit sweeter on the palate. It's not so much medicinal as it is just like a really black cherry, like a super heavy black cherry note. I think kind of like that aged cream soda note is there as well. It almost feels a little bit effervescent on the palate. There's some really nice spice on the mid palate, which is something you always get with Wild Turkey, but something I felt like was missing from Russell's 10 in previous iterations that I tried. I just feel like there just seems to be more going on. So it being 90 proof, it doesn't give you a super long finish, but the finish that it has definitely gives you an indication of some more aged notes here. I feel like I've never had a Russell's 10 year kind of dry my palate out a little bit. And I feel like that's happening here. And usually it's the aged whiskeys that do that, or sometimes toasted whiskeys for me will do that as well, or sometimes double oaked ones. But normally the aged whiskeys, the higher aged whiskeys will kind of give me that indication. But overall, this is a fantastic 90 proof bourbon. Normally, I go probably Eagle Rare over Russell's 10 year any day of the week. But this Russell's 10, I do think it hits different. So let me pour an older bottle of Russell's 10 and do a quick comparison here. All right, so here's an older bottle of Russell's 10 year. Let's just do a quick comparison. And of course, this is what you want to do. You want to check color, you want to check nose, flavor, and see if those big differences really pop out. Now, as far as color goes, the LLME does seem to be a tinge darker on the color. I mean, but that could happen from batch to batch all the time. So let's dive into the older batch of Russell's 10 year. And in comparison, it's a pretty stark difference. The older Russell's 10 year has that citrus note that we were talking about in the LLME version here. However, it's brighter. It's more of a fresh orange peel, orange citrus type of note here. It doesn't have like that darkness to it that the Russell's 10 year LLME does. Let me compare it here. Man, you could smell more oak on this bottle on the 2024 version. This Russell's 10 year that I have is actually from 2022, I believe. So I don't have the magnifying glass, look at the laser code, but I do believe it's 21 or 22. So it's from a couple years ago. But it's a sweeter, little bit of a brighter profile compared to the one here we have in 2024. But that oak and that rich, dark cherry, molasses, almost burnt orange note that comes through in the 2024 version is really what puts it over the edge as far as the nose goes. Let's go to the palate on the one from 21, 22 here. It's thin. It doesn't nearly have the depth that this one has. It's a big difference. Now, obviously, I feel like, yeah, I could probably run through every batch of Russell's 10 year that I could find or have and compare it. But obviously, I'm not going to spend all the money to do that when I could just buy a bunch of bottles of this one. I know that this LL/ME is pretty good, and I do believe, just based on what I'm tasting here, because remember, this is an unsubstantiated rumor. We don't know if this is actually true or not. The timing does kind of work out a bit. when you look at when Russell's 15 was bottled and when this was bottled in May. So yeah, there's a good chance that happened. But this Russell's 10-year, this LL/ME, I don't think this is something that's just rumor to me after tasting it. I think there is a stark difference. Now, if it is a rumor and this just happens to be some ridiculously well-blended batch that they created just for this month, could that be? Maybe. But there are some significant upticks in flavor, in oak, in age, and maturation that you can taste on the palate. Now, while I do roll my eyes at most laser code conversations, I have personally seen this with Wild Turkey. Is it every single iteration? No, because there's been years and months where it's just kind of stayed the same. Sometimes it's even gotten worse or a little bit better. I'm gonna take this at face value. I do think there's some older whiskey in this. So if you come across a Russell's 10-year and you look at the laser code on the back bottom of the bottle and it says LL/ME, buy it immediately. I feel like the secret's out on this. I love sharing this with you guys. I'm not sure how many are out there, and we don't know, is LLMF like this? That's something to look at once the future batches of this come out, and we'll see if there's actually a drop off. It's something just to look for. But as far as the LLME, if you find one, it could be one of the best low proof whiskeys you buy this year. So grab it. All right, guys, well, thanks for watching this episode of The Master and Drum, where we took a look at the Russell's Reserve 10-year LL/ME version, the May 2024 bottling. Let me know down in the comments if you liked it. If you did, hit that subscribe button below. Please hit the like button. And if you haven't yet, follow me on Instagram. Again, let me know down in the comments if you've gotten to taste this one, if you heard about the rumor, if you didn't know anything about it. Always love hearing from you guys, and hope I help you find a great 90 proof bourbon for a great price. So with that said, like I always say, it's not about the whiskey, it's the people you share with. Cheers, and I'll see you next time right here on The Master and Drum. Take care, folks.